Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the mental health and personality factors that may be at work in the case of Lisa Nowak? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So first I'll go through Lisa Nowak's background. I'll talk about the mental health and personality factors, and then I'll look at a few other areas like was justice served in this case and what was going on with the diapers that were mentioned in various reports. Starting with the background, Lisa Nowak was born Lisa Caputo in Washington, D.C. on May 10, 1963. She was raised in Rockville, Maryland. Her mother was a biological specialist and her father a computer consultant. Nowak had two younger sisters. From an early age, she developed an interest in the space program and maintained this interest as she went through school. She performed exceptionally well academically, and she was an athlete. After high school, she went to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. She would earn a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering in 1985 and was commissioned as an ensign in the Navy. At her request, she was temporarily assigned to the Johnson Space Center, after which she was sent to Florida for flight training. In 1988, she married a man named Richard Nowak and changed her name to Lisa Nowak. She would enter the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California in 1990. She would have a son in February of 1992 and graduate with a master's degree in aeronautical engineering in September of that same year. NASA started looking for astronauts in 1995. They received 2,400 applications, including one from Nowak. In 1996, they accepted her as a mission specialist, and her family moved to Texas. She had twin daughters in 2001. She was selected for a space shuttle mission in 2002. While in training for that mission, she met a fellow astronaut named William O'Flynn, and they started having an affair. This was a criminal offense in the Navy, but she was not prosecuted. Even after O'Flynn's wife found out about the affair, the couple continued the affair. Nowak would fly as a crew member aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery in 2006. In 2007, she would separate from her husband, and her relationship with O'Flynn wasn't going well either, as he started dating another woman, an Air Force captain named Colleen Shipman. This takes us to February 4, 2007. Nowak prepares for a drive from Houston, Texas to Orlando, Florida. Her intent appeared to be to have a confrontation with Shipman. Nowak packed a few items that suggested the meeting would not be collegial. For example, she was wearing a wig, she had duct tape, 4 feet of surgical tubing, pepper spray, a BB gun, a trench coat, gloves, a drilling hammer, a folding knife, a map of the neighborhood where Shipman lived, and a floppy disk containing images of women in bondage. In addition, there was a report that she wore maximum absorbency garments. These are diapers that astronauts wear because of the notable shortage of rest areas in space. On February 5, Nowak made her way to the Orlando International Airport and, after waiting about an hour at the baggage claim, saw Shipman, who had just arrived at the airport from Houston. Nowak followed Shipman to the parking lot. Shipman was getting into her car when she heard footsteps that sounded like somebody running behind her. She locked the door, only to find Nowak striking the window and trying to open the door. Nowak asked for a ride and started crying. Shipman lowered the window just a little bit, and Nowak deployed the pepper spray through the crack. Shipman drove away and notified the police, who arrested Nowak and charged her with several crimes, including battery, attempted vehicle burglary with battery, attempted kidnapping, and destruction of evidence. Bail was set for Nowak, but before she was released, she was charged with attempted first-degree murder with a deadly weapon. After the judge increased her bail to account for this new charge, she posted it and was released. Nowak pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. In March, the prosecutors filed only 3 charges: battery, burglary of a conveyance with a weapon, and attempted kidnapping with intent to inflict bodily harm or terrorize, as opposed to attempted kidnapping with the intent to cause joy or spread peace and love. Two completely different charges. The prosecutors did not follow the police recommendation and file the attempted first-degree murder charge. Nowak pleaded not guilty to the 3 charges. Nowak's assignment to NASA was terminated in March of 2007. She divorced in June of 2008 and was given full custody of the couple's 3 children. At first, it appeared as though Nowak's defense strategy would be to mount an insanity defense. I'll talk more about that in the next section. In 2009, Nowak pleaded guilty to felony burglary and misdemeanor battery. She was given a year of probation and no additional jail time on top of the 2 days she had already served. The court would seal the record of her criminal proceedings to prevent harm to her livelihood and family. In 2010, Nowak retired from the Navy as a commander. She had been demoted from captain. She was given an other than honorable discharge. This type of discharge is not as bad as a dishonorable discharge, which can only be issued after a court-martial, but it does represent a significant departure from expected conduct. As I understand it, Nowak experienced significant difficulties finding employment, although eventually she found work in the private sector. Her attorney indicated that she was doing well. Shipman and O'Flynn would both retire from the military in 2008 and get married in 2010. Now moving to the mental health and personality factors. There's not a lot known about the mental health factors in this case, other than the report that 2 mental health professionals had diagnosed Nowak with 4 different mental disorders: Asperger's syndrome, a single episode of major depressive disorder, brief psychotic disorder with marked stressors, and obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. I'll briefly go through these. It is important to note that we don't have any information other than the diagnosis itself. We don't know how the clinicians arrived at the diagnosis. But here are the characteristics of the disorders in general. Asperger's syndrome is now called autism spectrum disorder. It had been conceptualized as a mild version of autism. It's a disorder characterized by deficits in social communication and social interaction, along with repetitive behavior and restricted interests. There are many potential symptoms, but just to name a few: abnormal eye contact, lack of facial expression, rigid thinking, and hyper or hypo-reactivity to sensory input. Major depressive disorder contains episodes of depression. A person can have many episodes. That's usually what happens, but some people have just one. This appears to be what the mental health professionals are indicating in this case: a single episode of MDD. Depression involves extreme feelings of worthlessness, sadness, not taking pleasure in activities. It is often associated with sleep regulation problems as well. What I find interesting here is that major depressive disorder can have psychotic features, but the professionals didn't go with that. Instead, they diagnosed her with the next disorder here in the list: brief psychotic disorder with marked stressors. This disorder is characterized by one or more of the following: delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, or grossly disorganized behavior. The marked stressors specifier is used when the symptoms occur in response to what would be markedly stressful to almost anyone in similar circumstances. Another way of putting this would be that the specifier is used when the symptoms are understandable, like when we can look at a particular cause and say, that stressor must have caused the psychosis. Obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, otherwise known as OCPD, is a cluster C personality disorder. It's much different than the other 3 disorders that are listed here. 4 of 8 symptoms are required. As I go through the symptoms, I'm going to point out how some of them actually could be helpful in somebody's work as an astronaut. Symptom 1, a preoccupation with details, order, rules, lists, organization, and schedules. This one could be important. I don't know what astronauts would do without checklists. It's a critical part of their training. For example, nobody wants to launch into space only to remember they left their toaster on. Number 2 is perfectionism that interferes with task completion. Considering the penalty for being anything other than perfect during space travel is death, some degree of perfectionism does make sense. Number 3, excessive devotion to work and productivity to the exclusion of friendships. This seems consistent with an astronaut's life. They need to focus on getting the job done. They're not going to a cocktail party. Socializing is not an important priority in space. Number 4, they are overconscientious, scrupulous, and inflexible about matters of morality, ethics, or values. Astronauts do need to follow a chain of command, so they do have to worry about certain ethics. Number 5, can't throw away worn-out objects. The only thing I could think about here would be that you can't exactly roll down the window of a space shuttle to throw something out, mostly because of the part where the astronaut gets sucked out into space, their body balloons up to twice the normal size, they asphyxiate, and within about 20 hours they freeze solid. That's probably a lot to put on a warning label, so right below the window it probably says something like, "Don't even think about rolling this down." Number 6, they are reluctant to delegate tasks because they want things to be done in an exact way. On a spacecraft, everybody has a specific job to do. There are really not many opportunities to delegate. Number 7, has a miserly spending style, both towards self and others. This makes sense in that astronauts really can't spend money anywhere. Like at the drive-thru, they would run to that same problem with rolling the window down. And the last symptom, number 8, is rigidity and stubbornness. This one probably would not help because astronauts have to be flexible thinkers, although it is similar to being inflexible about morality. So in looking at these disorders, the autism perhaps went unnoticed, the OCPD could have been helpful, and the other 2 disorders only had temporary effects. The question I have here would be around the convenience of this particular diagnostic profile. It seems just a little bit too on the money. Again, 2 of the problems just happened to come all of a sudden in response to a stressor. She had been exposed to many stressors being an astronaut. Maybe they were arguing for some type of cumulative effect. I'm not sure. I think that the symptoms of OCPD and autism would have stood out before she became an astronaut, in particular the OCPD symptoms. By definition, that disorder comes with clinically significant distress. How did NASA miss that during all of the mental health evaluations? It would have been really helpful to see what symptoms exactly the clinicians believed were endorsed in this case. How did they justify these diagnoses? There's no such thing as late onset OCPD, so it's unlikely that she would have developed this disorder after already having become an astronaut. Moving to the next question. Was justice served in this case? The victim, Colleen Shipman, was not satisfied with the sentence, and many people agree with her. It's not necessarily what Nowak actually did. I think what bothers people is what she was planning to do. The images depicting bondage situations, the tubing, the duct tape, the knife, the drilling hammer. I suppose one could make the argument that she wanted to tackle a few home improvement projects along with Shipman, but I think that would really be hard to sell here. It's just hard to imagine how somebody could go from really being a hero to what some might call a monster. What really stands out is the disparity between who she was and what she became. Her life is a life of extremes. Without knowing more information about the mental health picture, it's really impossible to know if justice was served. With no or limited mental health symptoms, I don't think justice would have been served with no jail time. If the mental health diagnoses are accurate, then how did she make it through the mental health evaluations at NASA and the Navy? No matter what, somebody's in trouble when something like this happens. I think I would have been more comfortable with Nowak serving about 3 years in prison and receiving mental health treatment for many years after that. The next question is about the diapers. What was going on with this report? Nowak's attorney said it was a complete fabrication that Nowak was wearing diapers. From what I understand from looking at the various reports, it appears as though she had baby diapers in her vehicle, and she told the police that she used them to collect her urine on the drive. That is different than wearing diapers. But no matter what the truth is, she will always be known as a diaper-wearing perpetrator. Diaper wearing is generally an undesirable prefix. It is never followed by anything that will complete the term to create a positive image. It's kind of like the terms alcohol-fueled and criminally motivated. You never hear phrases like alcohol-fueled good decision-making episode or criminally motivated humanitarian. The lesson learned in this case speaks to the power of romantic situations to cause illogical behavior. If it can affect a highly trained and thoroughly evaluated astronaut, who is safe from such behavior? Those are my thoughts on the Lisa Nowak case. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.